Okay. What I have here, these are my slabs, and I had these stored last time. I remember I rolled these patterns out into the slabs, okay? And when I did that, it actually stretched out the slab. So what I did here is I kept these patterns here, the paper patterns. That way I can trim these back down to the size they're gonna be. Now the base was pretty big. I actually have the base bigger than my original base, which is fine. I can always trim that later. But like this side, you can see there's that piece. You can see it got quite a bit bigger. So what I'm gonna do here is this. I'm just gonna retrim these. Doesn't take very long. Take a knife like this works out nice. As long as make sure your knife is clean. And I'm just gonna lay this back on here, and I'm gonna retrim this down so that it's back to the size it's supposed to be. Now these extra little pieces that I have here, save these. Okay, because you may need them or you may want them later to put like trim on something. And since this clay is already leather hard, this will work perfect. I'll be able to add those to that. So I'm gonna trim this side down. So I've got that trimmed down. Now I know these two sides, this one and this one have already been trimmed. I trimmed that last time. This is the other side, and this is gonna go here. So I'm gonna retrim this side here and retrim that. And you can use this kind of a knife, or you can use this kind of a knife to cut it to. It really doesn't matter. So do that, and you save these little pieces. So there's another side. Here's my other side here, and do that. Otherwise, if you didn't roll the any kind of a pattern into your clay like bricks, which most of you probably aren't gonna do, you won't need to trim this twice like I am. You'll just trim it that first time, and that should be good enough, okay? So there you go. And now I've got that side, so I've got these two sides, okay? I've got these two sides. The roof got quite a bit larger than it was before, so I'm gonna lay that on there and trim off the sides of the roof here. And notice I got newspaper on my table. Don't do this on your table because you'll just make a big mess and it'll be a pain in the butt to clean it off. I know that I tend to take shortcuts sometimes. Like I'm at home and I want to paint something. I'm like, I don't need to put stuff down. Next thing you know, I got paint on the floor. And now I'm cleaning the floor on my hands and knees when it would have been so much easier to just put something down that would catch the paint. But even though I'm an old guy, I sometimes still don't learn. I do it the hard way. I think I can do it right, and I don't. Okay, so there we go. This has a pattern here with like shingles, and everything else is ready to go. Now, next thing, when you build your box, what you're gonna do is you need to build it on a board because you don't wanna be picking up your box. So I've got my board. This is the board I had before. I'm gonna use that same board, and I'm going to set the board down, and I'm gonna build everything up here on top of that board, okay? So I'm gonna start with my base. Here's my base, I'm gonna lay that down. Now, one of the walls here is gonna go right here, and the other one is gonna go right here. And then these walls are gonna go in between that, right there. Now they could go in between or they could go on the outside of it. That's one way to do it. Now, the only problem with that is when you put this together, what might happen is, well, what will happen is when you go to connect this, you might wipe off the bricks right here. So if you wanna avoid wiping off the bricks, you can cut these walls on an angle, okay? By that, I mean, I'm gonna cut them at a 45-degree angle. You know how a picture frame looks? It's got two corner pieces that go together at an angle. So I could do that with my box. If I'm making a pyramid, I definitely wanna do that. So I'm just gonna do that really quick here, and I'm gonna show you how I would do that. So what I'm gonna do is this. I'm gonna trim the side of my house here so it's cut at an angle, okay? So once again, if I hold my fork or my fork right up, let's say here's my knife, let's say here's the surface of my board. If I hold a knife like this, that's at a 90-degree angle. If I hold it like this, that's at a 0-degree angle. If I hold it halfway between 0 and 90, about right there, that's a 45-degree angle. You guys follow me on that? Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna trim these sides at a 45-degree angle. So to do that, I have some popsicle, little craft sticks. I'm gonna use that as a guide. I'm just gonna lay this here, okay? And then I'm gonna take my knife and I'm gonna hold it at a 45-degree angle, and I'm gonna trim off that little piece there, okay? Then I'm gonna do it the same thing on the other side. I'm gonna take my little popsicle stick, or it's actually called a craft stick, and I got tons of these, by the way. You can use them as much as you want. I get them in boxes of like 1,000. And I only buy them every couple years. I got enough to last a long time. So now, when you look at this wall, you can look at it this way. You can see it's cut on an angle. You guys can see that? And I'm gonna do the same thing with this one. Try to hurry up here. Like I said before, I'm filming all these demonstrations, so if you would get quarantined, or if you're just at home and you forgot what we were doing, you can go to YouTube, go to Graziano Artman, and you can look up the demonstration and watch it. And if I'm getting boring, you can speed me up or play me in fast motion. But rarely do I get boring, so you probably won't need to get that done. That was humor, a little bit of humor there. You don't have to laugh or anything, but just thought I'd lighten up the mood a little bit. Okay, same thing there. I'm gonna cut this at an angle, like that. Go this way, cut this at an angle. So I'm doing this so I don't wipe out the bricks. But if you don't have bricks, you don't have to do it this way. You can just butt the two pieces against each other. So I'm laying the stick right there, cut that at an angle. 45, remember 0, this is 90, that 0 halfway between is your 45-degree angle. So if I'm making a pyramid, definitely I want to cut it like this. And I'm almost done. I know it's exciting, here we go, last cut. Okay, next, I'm gonna put the building together. So I'm gonna go with my base. My base is gonna go there, okay? Then, I'm gonna start putting my walls here. So this wall is gonna go right like that, okay? This wall is gonna hook into that wall, right like that, at an angle. Okay, and then the other wall will go here, right like that. And then the last wall will fit right in here between these two walls. And that's how I'm gonna build my box, okay? So you guys can see that. Now, before I do that now, to connect these, I have to score them. Scoring them is when you rough up the clay, okay? I don't mean rough them up like pinch them or punch them or anything like that. I mean rough them up like use your fork, okay? So here we go. I like to rough up a couple sides at one time. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna line up these two edges. Matter of fact, I'm gonna line up 3 edges at the same time. Heck, let's go crazy and line up 4 edges. Look at that, my 4 edges of clay are all lined up. Now I can take my fork, here we go, and I'm gonna poke tons of holes in the sides of this. All over the place. I'm gonna make like Velcro here, all over the place with my fork. So I try to be organized and I can do 4 walls at once rather than 1 at a time, which is much slower, obviously. And I'm gonna rough up the sides, poke holes like crazy in there. And then I'm gonna do the other side. So I'm gonna shift these over like so, like that. And then I'm gonna take my fork right there and I'm gonna score this side. So I'm making that Velcro, those little holes everywhere that I'm gonna be putting slip into, which is wet, muddy clay, and then pushing these walls together. So I do that a lot. I'm also gonna need the base of this roughed up. So there's my 4 walls. Notice I didn't do much on this one here. Need some more on there. And the reason I use a fork is because I can poke 4 holes at one time, okay? So this, I'm gonna have tons of holes right along here. All kinds of holes. And if you're really fast, you'd be kind of like a woodpecker. Look at that. Is this fun or what? I think it is, okay? And last, the bottom edges here. Holes all over the place. Okay, it's a little bit time consuming, but in the end it'll all pay off. Okay, here we go. Now, I'm ready to put this together. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my toothbrush, okay, and I'm going to poke some water in the bottom of these. All over the place. Okay, I'm gonna poke some water Yeah, let's put my jar there. I'm going to poke some water into these holes on the base. Like so. I'm going to do the sides of my walls. Now you're probably going to redo this in a bit, but you can at least get it started. Okay, and then these over here. I'm going to poke water into the sides of these. It's getting a little messy. Okay, now I'm going to go kind of fast here. So there's one wall. I'm going to squish it down into the base. Now just by doing that, it holds pretty well. Look at that. It's not falling over. Okay, next. I'm going to take, actually, let's take that off. Let's put it here. And hold your base and just kind of squish it down in there like that. Look at that. It's holding itself up, but I wouldn't plan on it staying real long. Now I'm going to take this. I'm going to push it into the side and into the base. Okay. Now, before I connect the other walls, I have to seam these walls. So I'm going to say a clay wood modeling tool like this one, and I'm going to take inside this bottom crack right here. I'm going to run this in here so I get rid of that little crack that exists. I'm also going to run it right in here. Okay? I'm also going to do it on the outside right there. Now that might wipe your bricks down a little bit, but later I can go and draw those back in. I'm going to do it on the outside edge of my base. Okay? And I'm also going to do it in the outside edge of the other base right in here. So I'm making sure that that goes in there. Now, sometimes kids will do this. They'll take a little piece of clay like this and roll it up into like a little string. Okay? See the string right here? And then they'll lay that right inside the crack here, like this. And then you can seam that. That'll make it a little bit stronger. I'm pushing that clay into the crack, sort of reinforcing the wall, less chance that's going to fall apart. Now, sometimes when you're pushing on the inside, you end up pushing the outside open. I know it's hard to see from that view there, but I'm trying to seal this up. Okay? Now, I have to do these two walls first, and this is starting to get a little bit dry, so I'm going to take a little bit of water again and re-moisten the edges here, and then I'm going to take this wall, and that's going to go right into here. Like so. Squish it down so clay sort of oozes out of the cracks. Take my wood modeling tool and I'm going to seam it up here, right in that area. And I'm going to do it down in the base in here, push clay into there. I'll do the outside right here. And then I'm also going to do it along the outside of the base. That wall's in place. Now my last one, I can see this is getting pretty dry. So I'm going to take a little bit of my water again and re-moisten this. And on the bottom and re-moisten that. And now my last wall is going to go right in here. Like so. So push it in place. And once again, I'll take my wood modeling tool and I'll seam it on the outside. I'll seam it on the base. I'll seam it on the inside. This is where the tool comes in because I wouldn't be able to get my fingers in here otherwise. Actually, I think I got a light here. Hold on, where's that light? There you go. So inside here, you'll seam that, and inside this wall, and inside this wall. And if you want to make it a little sturdier, take one of these little pieces of clay and kind of roll like a little snake, and you can lay it right here in the corner, just like that. And then you can push that in the corner, and that extra little clay will seal up that corner. Okay? Got the idea. Now, I didn't do this very thoroughly just because I don't want to bore you too much. And then last thing, I'm going to start doing the roof on my building. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to connect the roof right like this. Okay? And then my other roof is going to overlap that one a little bit like that. So I'm going to connect that on top like that. Okay? Now, to connect that, you still got to score it. Now, you might say, well, how do I know where to score it? Well, if you lay the roof in place, I can take some kind of a tool, maybe like this one or even a pencil. I'm going to put a little line underneath here, like this, and down in here. So when I take that off, there's a line right here and there's a line right here, and it tells me where to score this with my fork. So I'll be putting my holes right along there. Okay? So you'll do that, holes all over the place. Now, some kids are going to get lazy and think, he's not going to know if I put holes all over there. I'm going to skip that stupid hole thing. I think Mr. Graziano is trying to put one over on me. We don't need holes on there. Okay? Well, you'd be wrong. You do need holes on there, because if you don't do it, this thing is going to fall apart later. Now, it might go together when you stick it right now because the clay is moist, but as this clay gets dry, the pieces are going to separate and it's going to fall apart. And you don't want to be spending, a whole class period assembling a roof or whatever and then have the thing fall apart later. So I'm going to put some water in here like so. I'm doing this faster than I normally would just because I want to speed it up. And I'm going to do this, so that would be pushed into the roof. Okay, now my other roof is going to go over the top of that one, and I need holes on that thing as well. And I'm just going to guess on where those are right now. Notice I made my roof is actually, it's hard to see, but my roof is actually pretty big right now. Okay, it's probably bigger than I need it, but I'd rather have it bigger than I need it than too small. Because if it's too small, then I can't cut it off. So when it's bigger than I need it, I can trim it off later. So here I'm going to take some water, put it inside of these parts right there, and I'm going to put water up in here. There we go. Bump, 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 like that. This roof is going to go over the top of that one. Push that in place. Now, once again, it's hard to see what I'm doing because you're looking from an aerial view here. But if you can kind of look this way, there you go. You can see what I'm going to do is go over this part right here. Okay, then get that nice and smooth and even. And I'm also going to take my wood modeling tool and I'm going to seam it underneath here, underneath that area, and then underneath this area. Got that? So that's what I'm going to be doing with this. And eventually, my box will be completely enclosed. And once it's completely enclosed, later is when I'm going to carve like windows and doors in it. I'm not going to do that before I get it enclosed. Now, notice right here with the seam is looking actually pretty messy. Let me just zoom in a little bit here. It's looking a little messy right here. And that's okay. Later, I might come back in after I do this, and I might like recarve the bricks in that area that I kind of had to mess up a little bit there. Okay, so here's my box, and the nice thing is my box is now sitting on this base. Oop, I zoomed in a little too far. Okay, so my box is on this base. You can see, and when I move this around now, I'm not going to be lifting the box up. I'm going to keep it on the base. Okay. So last thing, I'm going to, refine this. I'll trim it, put doors, windows on it, whatever I need to do. If I want to build a chimney, that's where these scraps come in. Like, for example, you might take a couple scraps like this, and make a rectangle, kind of. Okay, so it looks like a chimney. And then when you do the chimney, what you could do would be to cut it off on the angle of the roof. So take a look here. So I'll put the chimney here and I'll cut it off at the angle of this roof and then insert it into the top of the roof there if I want to do that kind of a thing. Okay? Any questions at all? So